Good morning, everyone. Welcome to an episode of Coffee Break with Card, Laura del Cafecito Sister Show. My name is Lourdes Quiñones, and I would like to welcome you to the show. Coffee Break with Card is a program dedicated to all those in our community who are living with autism, to their family members, and to all those who support them. So come on in, join us, and let us know in the comment section if you are having a cup of coffee with us or anything else. We'd love to say hello to you. In today's program, we have the pleasure of having with us Dr. Dolly Ferraiuolo, who is a licensed clinical social worker, a certified sex therapist, as well as an excellent neurodiversity affirming clinician. Since February is the month of love, Dr. Ferraiuolo has come to explain what is self-love and self-acceptance and why there is particularly an important point for autistic individuals. So join us. We have a lot to talk about. So welcome to the show, Dr. Ferraiuolo. I hope to say that well throughout the show.
Dr. Dolly is fine. I know it's a mouthful, so you're good.
Thank you. So welcome. So let's start by introducing to you our coffee break hostesses for today. As I mentioned, my name is Lourdes Quiñones. I am a card consultant assigned to the primary age group. Professionally, I am a pediatric physical therapist as well as a special education teacher. I am joined by my colleague, Olivia McDonald. Buenos dias, Olivia.
Good morning, Lourdes.
And of course, our guest, Dr. Ferraiuolo.
Hi.
Welcome. Jasmine Castellano could not join us today as she is representing CARD USF at a community event, but likely she'll be in the comment section sometime. So hi, Jasmine. So good morning to both of you in the studio. So as you know, Olivia McDonald is an excellent professional in the field of public health. She is a CARD consultant assigned to the primary age group, just like me. And Olivia is the mother of two and has a younger brother diagnosed with autism. So welcome, Olivia.
Good morning. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, so we'll introduce Dr. Ferraiuolo during our Q&A section coming up, all right? So before we get started, we want to review the rules by which we want to adhere during this programming to ensure a safe environment for all of us. And remember to keep an open mind, maintain a positive attitude, and use respectful language. And before starting, is there anyone we want to say hello to or any comments we already have or something or questions?
Yes, I want to say good morning to our colleague, Chris. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Chris.
Our former constituency board president, Dr. Mark. Hi.
Hi, Mark.
Paul and Denise. Good morning, guys.
Good morning, Paul and Denise. Thank you for being here. Let's try to keep this moving. We have a lot of topics to cover, so let's get started. If I can get my oh my God. Yes, there we go. Thank you. For those of you who are just joining us in today's programs, we have the pleasure of having Dr. Ferraiuolo, who is a licensed clinical social worker and certified sex therapist, as well as an excellent neurodiversity affirming clinician. And as we know, this is February, the month of love. And so Dr. Ferraiuolo is going to explain what is self-love and self-acceptance and why this is particularly important for autistic individuals. So join us because we have a lot to talk about. So let's start talking about a little bit about yourself, Dr. Dolly. Can you tell us a little bit?
Yeah. Hi, yes, of course. Hi, thank you so much for having me back. I really love working with you all, so it's really fun to be back today. Yes, my name is Dr. Dolly Marie Ferraiuolo. I am a licensed clinical social worker, sexologist, board-certified sex therapist. I'm also the owner of Share Therapy and Wellness in Florida, which is a group practice truly centered around affirming and collaborative mental health care, especially for neurodivergent folks. I also run Farah Forensics, which I provide trauma-informed evaluations, consultations for legal teams, and I'm building a larger education and writing platform focused on neurodiversity, relationships, and intimacy. So a lot of my work definitely lives at the intersection of autism, ADHD, trauma recovery, and definitely relationships. Clinically, I specialize in supporting autistic and ADHD adults, especially folks navigating alternative intimacy topics, anxiety, burnout, identity development, and relationship stress, which I know a lot of us struggle with. Many of the people I work with are definitely high achieving on paper, but privately we're exhausted from spending years trying to, keep up in environments that definitely were not designed for how our nervous systems work. I'm also autistic and ADHD myself, which definitely shapes how I show up in this clinical work. I don't approach autism as something to fix or mask or making it more acceptable. We approach it as a real and valid neurotype, and we focus on strengths and real support needs. And one of the areas I'm especially passionate about is helping neurodivergent people build alternative intimacy skills that support trauma healing and connection. That can mean learning consent and pacing skills, creating sensory-friendly intimacy environments, communicating needs without shame, and building relationship structures that actually fit the person instead of forcing the person to fit the structure. So I love conversations like this because self-acceptance, it's not just some fluffy slogan. We, as autistic people, it's a genuine mental health intervention. When someone stops treating themselves like a problem to solve, then the whole system starts to, exhale.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that approach. I think this is a wonderful conversation. So I encourage those in our audience who are listening in, especially if you are autistic and you are listening to this conversation, to add in the comment section any comments or questions you may have for Dr. Ferraiuolo.
Yes. So, I guess before we really start talking about this really deeply, how would you define self-acceptance and self-love?
Well, I definitely think self-acceptance and self-love are related, but they're not the same thing. So for me, self-acceptance is, quote, I can be honest about who I am without shaming myself for it. It's that internal permission slip that says, I don't have to hate myself into change. I'm allowed to exist as I am right now, which is really powerful. Self-love is what can grow out of self-acceptance. So it's more active. It's, I care for myself. I protect myself. I treat myself with respect. So it shows up in the choices that you make, how you decide to rest, how you decide to set boundaries, how you speak to yourself, and what you decide to stop tolerating. So I usually say self-acceptance is I'm allowed to be me, whereas self-love is, I'll treat myself like someone worth taking care of. And I definitely want to normalize this too, that, self-love doesn't mean feeling amazing every day, super confident every day. It's about, self-love is about taking a break, asking for help sometimes, or even just saying, today, my best is just being quiet or on my own. So that's how I would define those two concepts.
I like that because we are usually good at loving others. Most people are. Yes. I'm not saying everyone is, but most people are good at loving others or other things, even if it's a pet. But that concept, and that goes in all, neurodiverse or neurotypical. Loving ourselves, I think, is the hardest thing to do, to just internalize that concept of love. So I love that the way you explained the difference between self-acceptance and self-love. So thank you. Good job with that. I really, really, I was thinking about how you were saying it and when you were saying it, and that was awesome. So thank you.
Thanks.
So on that note, why can self-acceptance and self-love sometimes be challenging for autistic individuals? Why would you say that?
Definitely big question. So this can be challenging for autistic people for a lot of reasons that make total sense once you name them. I'm going to make sure to define some terms as we go along, just to make sure that everybody listening, regardless of background, is on the same page. So when I say ableism, I mean the messages, sometimes subtle, sometimes super loud, that say that there's only like one right way to think or communicate or socialize, to feel things, or one right way to function. And then like anything outside of that is treated as wrong or annoying or less valuable. So autistic people definitely grow up surrounded by these messages, even when no one intends harm, especially high masking individuals. High masking means someone that we would label as like high functioning. And when I say neurotypical social norms, I'm talking about the unwritten social rules that a lot of people pick up automatically, like, making eye contact at the, right time with people, knowing how long to talk to somebody, reading in between the lines, which is really hard for us, pretending that we're fine when we're not. We do that a lot. So for autistic people, these rules can be really confusing, super exhausting, especially when people are treating us as like some kind of measure of goodness or respect. So many autistic individuals will spend years getting feedback like you're too sensitive, or you're too intense, or you're too blunt, or too quiet, you're too much. Like I've heard that my whole life, or even just not enough. Even if it isn't said outright, like this pattern becomes who I naturally am isn't welcomed here in this environment. So over time, that can turn into a lot of self-criticism. And that's really, really detrimental to our overall wellness. Another big piece is masking. So I kind of mentioned this earlier. Masking is when an autistic person is learning to hide their natural traits to avoid rejection or like punishment from the people in their surroundings. And I would honestly say most of the time, this is a learned behavior that starts from like birth. Most autistic people aren't even aware that they're masking until it's brought to their attention and hopefully therapy. This can look like forcing eye contact, rehearsing scripts like in front of the mirror to yourself, suppressing your stimming, laughing at jokes that you definitely don't get, or like laughing a little too late, pushing through a lot of sensory discomfort, saying yes when you definitely mean no, do that a lot. Masking can help autistic people survive at school, work, in their relationships, in all different environments, but it comes with a cost. Eventually, we start to wonder, like, if I'm only accepted when I'm performing for people, like, would anyone even like the real me? And that can be a really dark place to get to. It's really painful to live in that place. And it's definitely a recipe for anxiety, depression, burnout, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, sensory overload. So, we have to also take into account late diagnosis. When someone learns that they're autistic later in life, it can feel so validating, like, oh, I'm not broken. There's a reason for why I feel like off around other people. But it also comes with a lot of grief. People, myself included, when we look back and we think like, how different could have my life could have been if I had known this information? Like, how much kinder would I have been to myself? There's a real mourning period that takes place, and that definitely deserves some space. And then lastly, there's the everyday reality of sensory overload and social fatigue. This world is very loud, very bright, unpredictable, very demanding. And it's an holistic world that is created, and we just live in it. And that could be very draining. It hurts the nervous system, and it drains the nervous system very fast. So it's really hard to practice self-love consistently when you're constantly having to override your own needs just to get through the day, just to be successful on the day-to-day in all of your environments. So when self-acceptance is hard, we don't see it as a personal failure. I see it as a normal response to just years of being told, either directly or indirectly, being different, be different to be worthy. It's a huge part of healing. It's unlearning that message that we need to be different in order to be worthy.
That's such a good point. And I think especially with late diagnosis, it's, it's I think sometimes good to keep in mind too, if like you've had so many years of getting this one message that it's going to take, it's not going to be just one day of hearing an alternative message for it to really sink in and start to
Yeah.
resonate as well.
I got my diagnosis later in life. I got it 10 years ago, and I'm still figuring it out. You know, it's not perfect. Even as a clinician working with autistic individuals, I'm just still working it out too. So it does take a lot of time.
So speaking about, practice, so what are some activities or practices that can help an autistic person, find that self-love and self-acceptance?
Yeah. I like to keep it really practical. Self-love becomes real when we let it show up in daily life as much as possible. So one big starting point is just learning your early warning signs, like when overwhelmed, like what that feels like in your body before it becomes like shutdown or meltdown, which is really hard to manage at that point. For some people, it's irritability, brain fog, jaw tension, nausea, wanting to literally run away from something. A lot of the times just feeling blank, like frozen, that happens a lot. When you can catch some of these early warning signs, you can actually intervene with some compassion instead of just pushing through that and then crashing. So I also recommend building a self-accommodation toolkit, definitely without guilt. That might mean noise canceling headphones, earplugs, the use of sunglasses, sensory friendly clothes, wearing things that just feel okay to you, predictable routines, allowing yourself to have recovery time after social gatherings, movement breaks. These aren't, crutches, they're supports for us, they're accommodations. And everybody uses supports. Autistic people just get judged for hours. So another practice is changing your language from judgment to neutrality. You don't have to love everything about yourself, but you do need to be a bit more neutral about it. So instead of saying like, I'm dramatic, it becomes my nervous system hits capacity pretty quickly. Or instead of saying, which we hear a lot, I'm lazy, you can say instead, task initiation is hard when I'm overloaded. You see, like neutral language, it helps bridge the gap to self-compassion. So honestly, community helps a lot. Just being around other autistic people, little quirky people, just makes you feel more seen and understood. Online or in person, that definitely could be life-changing because it's one of the first times that many people experience just being understood without performance. So that's really important. Finding your accommodations.
It reminds me, we just had the CARD conference in January, and one of our speakers, keynote speakers, she's an autistic occupational therapist, and she has severe sensory overloads, sensitivities, right? So one of the most impactful statements that I heard her say, I mean, all her presentation was amazing. She was being supported by her husband because sometimes she's overwhelmed and she just needs like a little push. So that's part of her support system. And one of the things that she said, and she on her slides and her PowerPoint presentation, she said it wasn't until she was an adult that she realized how much her sensory system impacts her vision. Her auditory system impacts her vision. And she was saying, because she has such sensitivities, that she was in the middle of the airport and she was about to have a meltdown because her auditory system, she had her noise canceling headphones, but she didn't want to look different. Again, trying to blend in, trying to mask. And she said she put on, finally, to avoid the meltdown, because she couldn't be in the middle of the airport having a meltdown when she has to be on the plane, right? So she put on the headphones, and then she says, at the moment that I did that, my husband went from, and she shows a picture of how she, until that moment, her entire life, she thought this was natural vision. It was blurry. She would see her husband with a blurry view, and she thought that was how vision was supposed to be. The minute she put those headphones on, he went from blurry to what focused vision was supposed to be. And that was very impactful. Being neurotypical myself, I don't have that issue. So I saw that as a clinician also, and I went, oh my God, what an impact and what a statement to hear that from an autistic individual. So to be able to do that, compassion, I like that word that you're using, because to give ourselves that permission, if I were an individual with autism, but even as a neurotypical, how many times do we insult ourselves? Like, I'm so fat, this or the other. I'm not fat.
Yeah, it starts with compassion with ourselves. How are we supposed to expect it from other people? Yeah,
exactly.
So, definitely.
I love it. I love it. What a wonderful conversation we're having today. And this, the month of love, right? Self-love. And it starts here, because if you don't have it to give, it's like the kettle, right? You have to take care. If you're poor, especially if you're in this, if you have families, if you have other people, you can't pour into others what you don't have inside to give, right? So finally, let me ask you this. Are there things that the family members themselves and friends can do to support the autistic individuals in their quest for self-acceptance and self-love?
That's a very big and wonderful question you're asking. So yes, this part matters so much. Support is definitely less about giving like pep talks and more about creating safety for the autistic individuals, and just believing them in general, right? Just because you're not experiencing something or can't quite understand what we're experiencing doesn't mean it's not really impactful or hurtful to us what we are experiencing. So one of the best things loved ones can do is just believe autistic people about their internal experience. If someone says I'm overwhelmed or I'm getting burnt out or whatever, the helpful response isn't like you're fine, right? It's asking questions. What would help right now? What options, or what can I do for comfort to help you right now? Another big one is not treating accommodations like they're optional or inconvenient. If someone needs predictability, for instance, if they're a little bit more rigid in their routine or in their daily structure, then offer predictability. If someone really benefits from direct communication, be direct. Like when we say we're direct, like we literally need like XYZ explained to us very directly. If an autistic person needs downtime after socializing, then normalize that. Don't get mad at them if they decide to ghost for 5 days because they need to recharge their batteries. We're not trying to be high maintenance. We're literally trying to protect our nervous system and provide nervous system care. So that's really important. It's also important to try not to turn autistic traits into character flaws. I unfortunately experience that even from other autistic people frequently. So instead of like you're being difficult, ask like what part isn't working for you. Instead of saying things like you're overreacting, it becomes, I can see this is intense. Do you need a break or a different plan? Again, asking questions until you understand. And a lot of the times the autistic person doesn't quite understand until we're asked the right questions. So, I'll say it very plainly. One of the most loving things that you can do for any autistic person is to just stop making the goal to be acting neurotypical, because that's never going to happen. The goal isn't to make someone easier to digest for the autistic world, autistic being neurotypical people generally, non-autistic folks. The goal is to help them build a life that feels stable, sustainable, and authentic to them.
Right.
Yeah. Just be you.
Yeah.
You.
Yeah. And as someone
I'm gonna make
who
that T-shirt, just be you.
I was going to say too, I loved your point about, asking like, if there's that overwhelm, having them ask like what options or what comfort do you want. And I think it could be really helpful also, like, so I don't have autism, but as someone who's neurodiverse in a different way, I found it's been really helpful telling people when I'm calm, like ahead of time of like, when I'm overwhelmed, these are things that help me.
Yes.
Because when you start to like, things are starting to build up, especially sensory wise, anxiety wise, and it might be hard for you to remember your own coping strategies.
Yes.
So
Yeah, definitely. I think you're bringing up such a valuable point right now. Too often, especially with parents, I think this will be a very helpful tool for parents. A kid is maybe having a meltdown, or you see them struggling in some way or whatever, and you go to them and like, "What do you need?" It's like we're overloaded. Like, we don't know what we need. Ask targeted questions. Like, narrow down the list. Do you need a snack? Do you need space alone? Do you need a nap? Do you need, go down the list of options, because I promise you that autistic child will say, oh, yes, that one, because sometimes we need a little assistance identifying in the moment. We just know something's wrong. We just don't know exactly what that is sometimes. So that's a really important point you're bringing up. And when we are calm, that is a good time to evaluate what we were experiencing and maybe write some notes down, maybe say like future reference, this could be helpful, etc. Yeah.
And then that's a list for, let's say it's a child in school age time. So it's a good idea for parents to share that, or for the child themselves to learn to self-advocate, to share
or even
with the
partners.
teacher.
Even partners,
teacher.
Adults. Yeah.
These are the things that help me when I'm having this experience, so that the teacher or the paraprofessional or the friends learn how to do that. These are the things that help me. Provide the list down. Well, what do you want this? So they're giving them that targeted choice that it's been proven. So you don't always want salty snacks. You don't always want sweet snacks. But if among those choices are your favorites, you're going to pick one that is your favorite at the moment that you need it. Like you said, I love that. So Dolly, one more thing. Is there something else you'd like to share with our audience?
Yes. So I'll leave you all with this. Self-acceptance, it's not something that you think your way into. I know that as autistic folks, we're really analytical a lot of the times. Self-acceptance is something that needs to be practiced. So it's built through thousands of tiny little choices every day, resting when you recognize you need to rest, telling the truth about your needs, even if it's really uncomfortable or really, new for you to do, or if you're not in an environment where that's easy to do, just getting used to doing that, learning to set boundaries, which I know is a big undertaking for anybody, but also for autistic folks, and choosing people who don't require you to perform in order to be loved. Year of the Snake, shedding a lot of people who might not be open enough to understand how to meet you where you're at. And I think that takes a lot of self-awareness and communication and boundary setting, and does take time. So if you're autistic and you're still working on all of this, just, hear this clearly. You don't need to earn your worth by suffering quietly. Nobody's getting helped in that situation. You're not broken. You are learning how to live in a world that was not designed with your brain in mind. And that takes a lot of courage. Every day, just waking up and getting out of bed when you're autistic in this world takes a lot of courage. So if you want support, working with a neurodiversity affirming therapist can be incredibly helpful, especially for learning how to unmask, for burnout recovery, anxiety, trauma work, identity development, just building self-accommodations that actually stick and work for you. So at Share Therapy and Wellness, we work predominantly with autistic and ADHD individuals across the lifespan. And we're always happy to help people find that right fit, even if it does end up being a referral elsewhere, right? Because it's so important to do that work for yourself, that foundational work, or you'll never get where you need to go when it comes to self-love and self-acceptance. So, with that said, thank you so much for having me here. I'm really glad that we're all talking about this in the month of love.
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah. So, that is a good a good sign off and a good segue for exactly that. Those of you who are watching us, if you have any questions at this time, we'll take them. Even if you come on the and see this, watch this after we get off the air, we always remind everyone, feel free to leave messages and leave comments, questions. We'll be sure to pass them on to Dr. Ferraiuolo, and she'll be glad to get back to you. But at this point, Olivia, do we have any questions or comments to address?
Yeah, so I did want to just say thank you to Sarah Rivera for the love. And I did have, there was a question of, I'm trying to summarize it. So basically, you know, if there is kind of the struggle with self-acceptance and self-love, I guess, how would a person know what's kind of like a typical a level of struggle that would be normal for like somebody with autism versus possibly like the involvement of like maybe there's like under other mental health issues that need to be addressed?
I kind of get the vibe that an autistic person asked that because it's a very black and white type question. So that is not a one size fits all. Essentially, if you're waking up and feeling bad about yourself in any circumstance, right? You're feeling bad about yourself when you're interacting with somebody. You know, you just kind of feel like you're not getting that support from somebody. If you're like in an environment that, you know, you're like, for instance, work, you know, if you get home from work and you're just like dead and you just have to be on the couch and you cannot do anything else, like that's a big warning sign, right? So really it's just about identifying for yourself what the levels are. Whoever asked that question, I think you're also talking about comorbid diagnoses. It is very, very common. If you're autistic, you're probably going to have some other diagnosis, right? You're probably OCD, probably maybe some ARFID, you know, maybe obviously anxiety, maybe some depression. Like these are fun little things sprinkled on top, and it comes out of being autistic, living in an holistic world. If we were born as autistic people on a fun autistic planet somewhere and the world was built for us, we probably wouldn't have those symptoms, right? Because the world would be built for us, right? So if you are experiencing high anxiety, social anxiety, burnout symptoms, and if you don't know what burnout is, you know, that is that numbness, that overwhelm feeling constantly, a lot of panic symptoms, probably OCD symptoms, a lot of intrusive thoughts, ruminations, things like that. If you can measure your daily wellness from a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like puppy dogs and rainbows and 10 being black pit of despair, fetal position in a dark room, you know, measure that for yourself. If you're anywhere past like a 4, well, we got a lot of work to do, right? We got a lot of accommodations we need to identify for ourselves. And the hardest part of this entire conversation, that there is no answer to any of that. Like what works for me as accommodations is going to be vastly different from another autistic person, because autism is not a straight line. It's not like high functioning and low functioning and anything in between. It is a circle. We are all autistic if you have that diagnosis, right? Functionality labels are literally there just for the clinician to know if you're verbal. So if you say someone's a high functioning autistic person, that has nothing to do with their functionality and everything to do with, can they talk? So you have to understand that self-love and self-acceptance when it comes to being an autistic person literally comes down to you internalizing the ableism that you grew up with and understanding what that means for you. So now, you know, 10 years into my journey, I don't care if I cancel on people. I will tell them I'm dead right now. I just worked 4 days in a row talking to a lot of people, and I wish that I had the capacity to give to you tonight. But if I showed up tonight, I will be a very bad version of myself, and it wouldn't be productive for either one of us anyway. And thankfully, I have wonderful people left in my life who get that and don't take offense to that. They say, great, when can we reschedule, right? Or if I'm out in a social environment, I do use my earplugs every day. I have 4 different kinds of, you know, shape, like plugging this. I don't have any affiliation, but Loops earplugs have been life-changing for me. I have a pair for sleep. I have a pair for being out in like restaurant environments, a pair for like really loud, like concert-like environments. I cannot survive without my earplugs anymore. It's like, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. So start just integrating little things like trial and error, right? Knowing what times of day works for you because of the lighting. I used to think, and my family used to think, that I suffered from car sickness. I'm actually just fine in a car. It actually came down usually to lighting. I didn't realize that the time of day and where the sun was and how the car and like the motion of the car, like that would literally make me so sick I would get sick in the car. I don't have car sickness. I have light sensitivity. I have sensory sensitivities. And we have to take the space and time to trial and error our sensitivities and our needs, and put little accommodations in place and see what works, see what doesn't. And then just be, and this is the hard part, just be okay with talking about it. And that is the actual hurdle for most autistic people, literally just talking about it with other people. Because,
and that was my point. Yeah. And that's exactly, it sounds like, it sounds like it. Bottom line, from all that I'm hearing you talk about, it sounds beautiful. It's having the right person hearing, the right therapist to talk to, the right families and friends, like you said in the conversation. Find your tribe. I'm going to summarize it to say, find your tribe. Find the people who are going to be compassionate enough to help you go through your journey. And so I think that I'm going to, because of the sake of time, I'm going to call it here. But as you can hear, this boils down to, first of all, acknowledging that there's ways that, first of all, you deserve you deserve the compassion enough to acknowledge that, hey, I have to address this. I'm worthy enough to address this. And if I'm going to, so that's the self-love part of it, right? Give yourself permission. And the self-acceptance is like, these are my things that I need to address. And then making it, doing the action plan, finding the right therapist, the right group of people that will be in your life that will help you achieve those important goals. So I love it.
And if people are wanting kind of information on possible providers and things like that, because I know we cover like a wide area, we can also help at CARD. So don't hesitate to
amazing. Dr. Ferraiuolo, you are a blessing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for this wonderful information. And again, for those of you, a great interview, Sarah. Oh, thank you. A message around self-acceptance and self-love. Yes, I agree. Thank you. God bless. Thank you for being here, for having accepted our invitation on this month of love. I'm getting goosebumps. Thank you so much. And for those of you who are new to the show, just a reminder that we come on the air every third Friday of the month, 10:45-ish. And we always said 45-ish because if there's technical issues, we also do this version of the show in Spanish right before it at 10 o'clock. So we might be running a little bit late because of that. Our next show is March 20th, and when we will be talking about Florida Able United, which is a savings account program that helps individuals with severe diagnosis or disability save money tax-free while also protecting their public benefits. So be sure to join us for that episode so that you can learn how to save money for your loved ones with, in this case, autism, but it's for any disability here in Florida without threatening their disability benefits. Okay, so you can't miss it. We'll see you here on the 20th. And right now, before we go off the air, I want to ask you again one more time, a little favor is that you go on that link that we're going to be adding and just give us a grade. Let us know how we're doing. It's 6 little questions, even if you have done it before. I've always remind you that this is the way that we can justify the time that it takes us to put together this kind of programming and be here on the air with you. If you find value on this type of programming, please let us know. Let us know. We really, really appreciate it. Just like our background, all those hearts. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so that brings us to the end of the show. Again, thank you, Dr. Ferraiuolo. We really appreciate you for being here. It's been a fantastic talk. You are amazing. You have a lot of wisdom and personal experience to bring in. So we always love having you back here. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
This brings us to the end of the show, but don't forget, before we go off the air, to give us a like, to share this video with those who you know can benefit from this type of conversation, and to be sure to meet us here on the third Friday of each month around 10:45. Next time, March 20th. Oh, also, we wanted to let you know the Fiesta by the Bay is on April 18th. The tickets are already available, so we're going to give you a link to the information. We hope to see you there. We have lots of fun, lots of activities for loved ones with autism, and you get to dance with us. So we'll see you there, okay? So until next time, we'll see you here so we can share a cup of coffee with you and as we spill the beans on important topics related to autism. But until then, we want to wish you good vibes and hot coffee. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.